uh, I'm explaining the difference between standard controller, custom controller, and extension. And first one is standard controller. Standard controller is one of the main advantages which Salesforce provides us when we create a as object. As object in Salesforce, we get access to something called like standard controller. In standard controller, at a time we can refer only one record. In if we in standard controller, if we are using like if we want to refer account object, contact objects, we can at a time we can refer only one record. In standard controller, we can refer as object. As object means both the object like standard object and custom object. So in Salesforce, we call them as object. We can call a standard controller in BF base in object, and we can override existing button, or you can create new button in standard controller. You can call your the existing button and create new button as per your requirement. Standard controller will work on user mode. User mode is like whatever the user have securities and sharing rules, whatever the limitations. So standard user will use on that all these securities and the sharing rules, and it will work on user mode. Contain the same functionality and logic that are used for standard Salesforce. If we use a standard controller, so by default we can use all the standard functionality which a standard controller have in Salesforce pages. In a standard controller, we can use 9 method, whatever Salesforce provided by default. It is add files, we can add files, cancel, delete, edit, get ID, get record, reset, save and view. These all 9 methods we use in standard controller, which is provided by Salesforce by default. This is the syntax if we call standard controller in Apex. This is the syntax. We use a standard controller equal to whatever the standard controller we want to use in this Apex page. And then we go for custom controller. A custom controller, nothing is it a Apex class. A custom controller is an Apex class that implements all of the logic for page without leveraging a standard controller. We can call Apex class, and only one Apex class is used. In one time, we can use only one Apex class in a custom controller. We use Apex class properties and method in our BF base. Whatever Apex class we write as per our requirement, we can use all that properties and method in our BF base. Use custom controller when you want to Visual Basic to run entirely on system mode. If we want that skip all these permissions and field level security for users, so we can use the, if we want that the Visual Basic completely run on system mode, we skip all these, we want to skip all these permission and field level security, so we can also use the custom controller. In custom controller, we can override existing functionality, because we can write our own as per our requirement. We can skip all these existing functionality and we can use the custom controller functionality. Custom controller. Hello.
Yes, madam. We can go.
Yeah. Custom controller defines its own functionality.
Yes.
Whatever we write in our Apex class, so in custom controller, it defines their own functionality. We can customize the navigation in custom controller also. In custom controller, we have, like if we want to that great control, that whatever the information we want to access in our page, so if we have means a finer control on the custom controller. Whatever we want to share and whatever we want to access, we can do through custom controller. And this is the syntax of custom controller, Apex base, and we in place of standard controller, we use controller. And whatever the custom controller, whatever the class name we provide, this Apex class name, this we use as like custom controller name. And then extension. Controller extension is an Apex class. Extension is also Apex class that extends the functionality of standard and custom controller. We use extension to extend the functionality for standard controller and custom controller. If we want to keep most of the functionality of standard controller and custom controller, then if we want to keep that functionality as it is, then it is vital that we have an extension. Because if we write an extension to extend that functionality, then whatever the functionality they have, we are not going to touch that. And we can we can have extension, so we can whatever we can want to add the more function, we can add through extension. Extend the functionality of standard controller and custom controller. We can use multiple Apex class separated by comma or used. In extension, we can use multiple class. We can separate them by comma. If want to associate a Visual Force space with more than one Apex class, then we need to make use of an extension. If we want to associate a Visual Force space more than one class, then we use extension. The advantage of using an extension is we can have up to 5 extension by separating each of them with a comma. We can use up to 5 extension and we can use them by separate with a comma in one way. If a method is implemented in both of the extension, means if we use the same method in both the extension that comes first, that has the method implementation, gets the priority and gets invoked. So if we use two extension, and which is the extension is came first, so that override the second one functionality. And this is the syntax Apex class, and whatever the standard controller we use here in custom controller, whatever we use here, we mention that, and after that we use extension keyword, and whatever the Apex class we write as an extension, we put there and we execute a split. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, madam. Thanks for the session. It is good actually.